was talking to the gentleman inside of the Discord about this one. So we called this move down to 1750-ish, right? We were talking about this for weeks on the stream. All right. And look what we did. It was a perfect. We had this drawn beforehand, right? It was a perfect tag of demand. Look at that. I had that drawn before this tagged, right? So a perfect tag of demand on ETH, right? So one of two things here that I'm looking at. Either this is the Pico low and we got the low, or we get a slight move from 1879. We get a slight move down back into this demand, about 1700, 1750 again, and start to bottom out before moving higher. So I'm looking for something like this on ETH. It actually started playing out on the lower time frame. I was saying I'm looking for something like this. So we get this tag of the demand. Look how perfect that was. I'm looking for something like this. A bouncy ball losing steam, right? So it kind of bounces in, boom, 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 before moving like that. Okay. So in here, 1700, 1750, that's generational bid territory for Ethereum. Okay. Whether you like ETH or not, whether you think it's a cucked asset or not, etc., that's generational bid territory, because that's about as oversold as you're going to get this asset. Because the bear market lows on ETH was, well, bear market low, COVID or FTX nuke. FTX was $900. Over here was about 1,000, 1,300, 15, 16. So, I mean, anything inside of this green demand zone, that's a generational bid on ETH. That's generational bid. You're going to get the entire move to the upside. You're buying at the lows. I just don't see how ETH comes down lower than 1,500 without it literally just being completely decimated. It's over, right? That just doesn't even make sense. So this is generational bid territory on ETH. And if you look at some of the momentum oscillators, we go on the daily. Okay. So we were waiting for a bigger sell-off on ETH. And that's why we were expecting that move down to 1,700. The only issue that I still have is we still didn't get that oversell, complete capitulation into the red here, right? Just the same way we had on August 5th. You had a true capitulation on the daily time frame. We never got that real red, deep oversold territory on ETH. So that's why I am cautious just right at this moment before really deploying all my capital back in, because it wouldn't shock me if we got one more little puke on ETH where we come back down into like 1,600, 1,650 to get that final capitulation low, right? Does it have to happen? No, not necessarily, right? I mean, this just was a capitulation right here, yeah. Right in here. Yeah, this one right here. So, I mean, you do want it before that inevitable big move back up higher. We just didn't get it yet on ETH, okay? So just be cautious. I wouldn't deploy literally every single last dollar you have back to the markets if you haven't already, because you could see one last little puke on ETH. But otherwise, I mean, at this point, risk to reward, RR's there. Now's the time you want to start looking to bid, okay? So that's the RSI. And then, one other thing too we were talking about. This is how we called this move on ETH. Was you were talking about the time frame in which this would bottom and top. This bottomed and topped before inevitably getting this move to the downside. This last little wick down was on Tuesday, March 11th. That is literally in the exact time frame in which we were calling for that to happen. I said about March 9th, to like March 10th, 11th, beginning of the week, next week, when we were talking about it last week, I said that's when we're typically going to get, that's when it looks like we're going to get the low on ETH. Look what happened. Literally called it beautifully. So if that is the low on the ETH, we timed that perfectly using the GLI and using the time frame in which we bottomed on the August 5th nuke, and using that piece, using this range for confluence, right? So we timed the bottom perfectly, and so that's whenever we're going to start making moves on our assets.